Hello and welcome finally to another Movie Monday. It's been definitely a hot second.
It's fine. Life happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically around August, it seems that we usually skip some weeks.
I mean, last year was a
And
whole other situation. This year, I just was sick, and then you guys had the thing to do. So, yeah.
yes, it all
But
works out. It all
it,
works out.
yeah, it's fine enough. At least we weren't gone for like 2 months or whatever last time.
Yep.
Yeah. So what did we watch?
We watched Josee, the Tiger, and the Fish, which is a movie that I had seen like an AMV for, which it and I wish AMVs were popular again.
Yeah, I wonder if some people don't know what that is.
It's not
But
2007 anymore.
yeah, unfortunately. But I saw an AMV for it, and I was like, "This looks like a cool movie." And then I tried looking up stuff about it, and the movie itself did not really have like a summary or anything about it. And it's different from the book that it's based on, because the book had a summary and it was very depressing, of which the movie was like, nah, we're not gonna really go with the depressing anymore. So none of us really know what we were getting into.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I think it's actually a really nice movie.
Yeah. I liked the... Well, okay. How much do we talk about? Because, I mean, one thing is kind of a spoiler.
I guess all the non-spoilery
Yeah,
stuff
what's the
first.
one thing? I don't know.
The thing that happens to the guy.
Okay, sure. That's a
That,
spoiler.
yeah,
Okay, I
that's
guess we'll save that for later. I mean, for me, okay, so watching this now for me is kind of weird because of like sort of my mental state right now and like what I'm kind of going through like emotionally. It's like it's not this. There's parallels. It's not the same, but there are some parallels. The idea of like, especially with the guy where the whole thing is like, you spend all this time and all of your work to try to go for a goal only for like something to happen or some realization to hit where all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, is this actually possible, or is this something that like I actually want to do? And
Yeah.
so I recognize the parallel with that. It's not the same, but it was familiar enough to notice that I thought was kind of interesting for me to see this now. And something that I've been like kind of trying to do more recently, is I tend to have a hard time connecting with characters that I just like personally wouldn't make the same decisions as them, even though from the character's perspective, based on what they know and what they experience, the decision makes sense. It's still not something I would do. And so I have find that to be kind of difficult to connect with them in that situation. And I'm trying to get better at that, because it's not like really like, it's not like the writing is bad or because the character, in that situation, it's a personal thing, right? So
Yeah.
I'm trying to connect more in that sense. And I think actually the game that kind of pushed this for the game, well, yeah, it is a game, was actually Xenoblade 3. Because there's actually a lot of like character decisions and sort of like moments where they sort of declare kind of how they feel about the state of the world or certain things that I'm like, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I understand why you're saying it, And so I think so there's that, and then there was something more recently than that, that now I can't place right now, where I had sort of a similar reaction to, and so I'm trying to get better at that, because for example, Josee in this movie is, in terms of her character and again sort of her behavior, is something that I would not do if I was in her situation. And also I personally, like, for example, especially like the first third or so of the movie, I would not like want to hang out with her, right? Because of her behavior. The thing is, it makes sense from her perspective in the grand scheme of things and what they're going for through the overall like character progression. So
Mhm.
again, it's one of those things where it's like it's sort of a personal decision versus the actual like, you know, quality of the writing and the character or whatever. That's two separate
Mhm.
things. And so I I think I've again like I feel like if I watched this maybe like a couple years ago, I feel like I might have been a bit harsher on it than I was because of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, there is one thing that I do not that I think is weird and out of place.
Mhm.
But it's a very minor thing, so it means it's relatively easy to sort of move on from it. And even then, it's not like terrible. It's just sort of like, I wouldn't have done this, but you know, not that big of an issue. Um, but besides that, yeah, like, I think the characterization overall is good. There's some good moments here. Um, I think it does a good job of being like a small story that stays small. Um, and yeah, again, there's that one thing which I'll bring up when it's because it's kind of a spoiler thing, so I'll bring it up later. Um, but yeah, if you just kind of want a movie that does have some again nice character progression and nice moments, that is this sort of, I mean, it is ultimately sort of like a. This isn't really a spoiler, I guess. It's sort of kind of a romantic-ish movie.
Mm.
Even though it's not standard in that sense, really, in terms of what you think of. It works, and I like it.
I also appreciate how like her legs don't magically get fixed or
Mm.
Yeah.
anything like that.
Hmm.
Nor is it like some of the things that happen to her are well happen to both of them. Like Valen, you brought up the fact where the grandma was like, you must be a student if you're poor. Huh. That's
Yeah.
just the candidness of that.
Hmm.
Or like with Josee, where it's like the fact that she's in a wheelchair and there's nothing that can be helped with that. That impacts her whole life and a lot of the decisions that she has to make and everything.
Yeah.
And she gets frustrated about it. And yeah, I would be pretty frustrated
Yeah.
Hmm.
with that. I appreciate how it's not like, oh yeah, the magicalness of the universe is going to make like everything happen and everything will go right and everything like that. It's like no, there are certain things that do happen that are really sad, but it's reality too in that way.
Yeah, like I think I did in the very beginning I was like, okay, I also didn't really agree with how Jose like handled things in terms of like how
Same,
she
yeah.
behaved, but I think after a little bit I kind of also appreciate the fact that they chose to portray her as someone who is bitter about
Yeah.
the hand that she was given, and because that would be very realistic. Like I'd be pretty pissed too if I was in that kind of situation. So I think after I realized that, I was like, okay, I mean, it's not like the best way to act, but I think she at least is handling it in a very human way.
Especially because this isn't a spoiler because you learn about this very early on. Her grandma doesn't is very overprotective of her.
Yeah, and she does kind of have a sheltered outlook on things. Like she doesn't really know how to do anything because she is. And
Yeah.
that's also kind of realistic. I mean, when you're
Yeah.
sheltered, you're kind of like, I have no fucking idea how to do anything.
Yeah, it is also very realistic for people with disabilities to be sheltered like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like her coming in and like learning about the world and everything and being like mystified by it, it all makes sense as well as the fact that she's not like, oh, I lost my ability to walk, but that's okay.
Mhm.
I am.
That would be so weird.
It is, but I feel like that's still like a fairly common kind of character, where it's like
Yeah.
you have either it might not be a full on disability, but it's definitely a situation where like your life sucks for reasons that are completely out of your control, but yet I'm just a happy-go-lucky person that appreciates any good thing that happens to me, and it's like
No.
again, it's a weirdly common character type.
Yeah. So I think that's like thinking of that in mind. I think that's also pretty common, like in anime in general. So I was like, the fact that she's kind of bitter about this makes me appreciate her characterization more.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and again, like you
the
said,
only-
the whole thing about like the movie doesn't focus on like again trying to like cure her, right? That's not the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
good with
just
it
like
too.
how to. It's like you're more just seeing how she goes from one way of living her life to a better way of living. Her
Yeah.
life.
You get
Yeah.
all the characters get better
Mm-hmm.
one way or another.
Mhm. Well, while still dealing with what she's been dealing with from the beginning, it's
Yeah.
just yeah. So that's good done with that. That's good there. There was like okay, there was one moment where I was like, wait a minute, and again, this is like the most nitpicky shit that like doesn't matter. But like, because they were at this like aquarium at one point, and they're like this, and they're like, here's like this kind of thing, and here's this kind of fish, and here's a whale shark, and I'm like, that would not be in an aquarium. Those things are like 60 fucking feet long. Like, no. But like again, I'm just.
It's an anime.
I know, I get it. Doesn't really matter, but I was just like, hold on.
You're just like, wait, no.
Yeah, I mean, because kind of not necessarily exactly the same, but they've actually like they've tried to have like great white sharks in like captivity, and
Oh no.
they've all died like really fast. They're just like they just don't
Oh.
work in captivity. And again, those are whale sharks are bigger, so it's size is not the only factor to be fair. But with that, but still, it's just kind of funny. But yeah, I think then I do think the interesting thing about how like actually, you reminded me of something. There's a scene early-ish on where she's like having a dream of like the world, the sort of like the mermaid dream that she has, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that like unlocked this weird memory where like I remember that like wait a minute, I used to kind of have somewhat similar dreams, not that I was a mermaid, but that like that the world was kind of flooded, but like I could still like breathe and just like swim around in like my house and out in the yard or something. That was like a dream that I had like kind of frequently as like a younger kid. And I kind of totally forgot about that, but yeah, I don't know, random, just a random thing that I'm like, oh yeah, that was the thing that I kind of experienced. But yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say before we talk about the spoilery. Before we talk about the spoilery stuff.
I was gonna say too that it makes total sense why she would have a dream about that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
then she can do whatever.
Yeah.
It would be fine. Provided she knows how to swim, at least.
I don't think she knows how to swim.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole
Actually.
thing where I mean, you don't need to swim if you can't drown.
Oh yeah, that's true. You just kind of like, whoop.
Yeah, and I think like there aren't really any like really big, grand, epic moments, but like in terms of like animation wise. But for the small scale kind of stuff they're doing, it looks good. It adds a little bit of extra flair. I remember there's I can't remember the context. It's like a fall scene where they're walking by a bunch of trees.
That looked really pretty.
Yeah, again, that's not like a super like fantastical, amazing, complicated shot or something, but it's like it looks good. So yeah.
Yeah, the animation was really nice.
Yep. Very, very simple, but very, very good.
It was done by Studio Bones, which I
think they did Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah, they did Full Metal Alchemist. So that is
That's
which
what we're working with.
Yeah, which that looks really nice.
No more Studio Dean.
Oh god, if they did a movie. I guess we'll go into spoilers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll say the one thing I didn't like, and then I'll say the thing that I thought they were going to do, but they didn't do. The one thing I don't like is the whole thing where the character named Mai is like, I actually love him and you don't, or whatever, and I'm just like, why is this a plot point like this?
Yeah, no, I didn't like that either.
It just kind of came out of nowhere. It didn't really matter, so I'm just like, that was kind of weird. Again, it's not that much of the story, So, which I guess you could argue is kind of a good thing, so you don't have to worry about it. But at the same time, it's like, well, since it's not much of a story, then why was it even there to
Why did
begin
they
with?
include it?
Yeah, so there's that. And the thing that I thought they were going to do is I thought they were going to keep the guy wheelchair bound. And the whole thing is that, like, you know, now they're both on the same level or whatever, right? And I'm not sure, like, which of either the way they did it or the way that I thought they were going to do it. I'm not sure which one is, like, more common with the trope of this kind of stuff, but I think given the whole thing about his dream and the narrative with that or whatever, I think I do like it better that he did recover.
Yeah, I also liked it better that he did recover.
Because I also think that lent a lot of weight to what Josee did. Like, that scene was really good, where she was like, okay, I'll inspire him to at least pick up himself and, like, go forward with his own life, because in that way she's kind of doing what he did for her, which was to help her, like,
help inspire her and work towards her goals, especially after her grandma died and she's like, okay, I actually have to figure out things for myself and everything. And while I have my dream of being a children's illustrator, I also acknowledge that I'm not going to be able to afford this house.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to need to move and everything like that. So it's things like that I also really appreciate for how they went with it and everything. Because, similar to Valen, I thought that it was going to also end like that. Or that it was going to end with him being extremely depressed and it was going to be one of those movies where they were going to go off in their own directions and stuff like that. Thankfully, that didn't happen. And I think because of that, the movie actually became really inspiring because it's grounded in this really realistic setting.
I also like how, in the end, they chose to do long distance, and it's not like he gave up his dream. And it's not like he brought her with him.
Yeah.
He they made it so both of them were independent and that they could pursue their own dreams, but they could still be together. I really like that.
Yeah. So congratulations, Mai. You were the worst part of the movie.
I'm sorry, but
how could you do this?
You just had to be a catty bitch for no reason. Classic Mai.
What? I thought I'm angsty.
Whatever.
It's Katniss Everdeen, isn't it?
Fuck that bitch. Don't speaketh that name in this house.
I guess we'll go to ratings now.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually not 100% sure where to rate this at first. But I think because again, I think this does have some really strong emotional moments, and the overall character growth is really solid. But I don't feel basically, given kind of the thing with Mai that does seem like really weird and kind of out of nowhere, I feel like I can't really rate it any higher than an 8. So I'm gonna go for an 8, which is still good. So you know, but because I was honestly contemplating, do I maybe want to make this a 9? But I ultimately decided no. But I could see someone else maybe giving it a 9 if they.
Well, I'm gonna give it a 9 because I'm not gonna lie. During like Josee's story, I cried.
No, that was a very good scene. So I don't deny that at all, and I would understand if again you.
Yeah, no, like I was not sure between like an 8 or a 9, but then I was like, oh god, oh no, oh fuck, okay.
I think I'm also gonna give it a 9 because I think it tackled like a lot of issues and stuff that I feel like a lot of movies do.
They just don't talk about, or they like handle in such a bad way.
Yeah.
Or they sugarcoat it or something like that. Or the disabled character is like a side character and you don't really see them at all.
Yeah, or they're the happy-go-lucky dinky girl who's totally fine with everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I have cancer? Oh, that's okay. I'm gonna appreciate life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy about this.
Yeah, I actually would be curious to see someone's take on this movie who is like, it sounds weird to phrase it this way, but like more disabled because again, I'm technically disabled, right, with my vision, but like I'm not.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are things I cannot do, and there are some accommodations, of course, but I'm. It's not like I have to on like a random day. My life, in terms of how I live it and what I do, is drastically different from other people, right?
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I think it would be curious to see again someone maybe who's like, maybe almost or close to being fully blind watching this, or something not that could maybe get in with that aspect of it a bit more. I'd just be curious to see what their reaction was,
Yeah.
Hmm.
whatever the disability that might have would be. Because I think that this applies to more than just wheelchair. I'm probably sure that most kind of people with a disability would
Disabilities.
be able to
Yeah.
get that aspect of it. But I'd just be curious to see what the specific reaction would be.
I would be too.
So
So, yes,
there
please
you
go
go.
watch this movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is good. So, because we didn't do anything for 2 weeks, we're already to the show for the beginning of September. So, what's it gonna be?
Okay, so I had this show in the back of my head for a little bit. I haven't watched it, but I was talking about it very briefly with one of my friends a couple months ago. And when he told me the premise of it, I was like, "Oh, this is actually pretty interesting." I'd be pretty interested to see what it is. So I'm not going to say much about this besides the fact that Sam Jackson is in it.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to suggest that we watch The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray.
I don't know anything about this movie. Or TV show, rather.
I've never even heard of it, so okay. Interesting.
It's it seems like it's a drama, and it seems like it's also a mystery. So those are two things I really like.
Okay.
So we will see how that goes.
All right. Okay. I guess we will. Interesting choice. And something that we have to start thinking about soon is October.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, spooky. Oh, shit.
So we'll have to start thinking about that. But we're not But in the meantime, yeah. So next Sunday will be.
Go Sunday.
Yeah.
Yay.
There we go. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.